Westchester University in Pennsylvania was one of the first universities in the United States to react to the COVID-19 pandemic and close their campus at spring break. I caught up with Professor Ed Lordan and Associate Director Melissa Rudolph to find out how that happened.
We have a sort of a top-notch team at the top, which has set the tone for all of our public relations and communications going through. So as you know, communications is only going to work well when the team at the top is clear in what they're doing and has a good strategy.
Initially, what we did before our students went away on spring break is surveyed them through their emails and asked where they were heading on their spring break. And what came back with those survey results is that students were traveling to a lot of different countries and all over the United States. So that is really what made the decision for the university to discontinue in-person classes for the remainder of the semester. We were one of the first institutions in the United States to make that decision. So it was, at first it caught many of our audiences off guard. However, it was the right decision, and it gave our faculty and our students plenty of time to, move out of their dorms and prepare courses for the remainder of the semester. We have a little over 14,000 undergrad students, and around 10,000 students actually took the survey. So it was a big number that we received of those results. And there was a large portion that were traveling. So that was really, any good decision, I feel like, is based on research. And that was really what made the final decision for our administration to discontinue the in-person classes.
It came on to the States the same way it came on over in Ireland, which is it came on super fast. And a lot of the initial reaction is sort of like the tail end action now, where people were sort of in denial and sort of slow to the decision. As Melissa pointed out, our university was it was the first in the region, and it was among the first in the country. And we had about a 3-day period where we took a lot of heat in the press around here and from various audiences, various constituencies, where they were like, you're overreacting and this is going to be disruptive to people. But our council, our top people were sort of like, this is coming, let's prep, let's get right on top of this. So we had this 3-day period where we were really facing some backlash on it. And it turned out that we were ahead of the curve, not behind it.
Initially, it was an email that went out, but pretty much simultaneously, I was putting up a web page, which little did I know that this would end up being a full-blown website with multiple pages and links and releases. But we put out a web page, and then pretty much within 5 minutes, it hit media. So,
and what was the media reaction that you got then at that stage? Because Ed was saying you got quite a backlash.
Sure. So just on social media, which is what I run for the university, the main social media channels, we received over 300 questions within the first 24 hours.
Wow.
And I always put that into context for people as to if that was a phone call. So that would be like receiving a phone call every 4 minutes for 24 hours with people asking questions. So it was really important that I organize and list all of these questions, because our cabinet, our top administrators, was meeting every single morning, and it was important to get answers to the questions that our students, our parents, our incoming students were asking. And they were great about fleshing out that information, especially because once they made that decision, it wasn't like we had all of our ducks in a row and all this information that students were going to move out of their dorms on such and such date, and graduation ceremonies were still going to be held. We didn't know these things. So I think that was very challenging in my position to, as these answers were coming in, even to go on and be responding to them on multiple social platforms, as they were coming in. The 300 number was just in that 24 hours.
Is try to consider all audiences. So we can't simply say student body, because we have students from around the world, and all of a sudden we say, everybody go home. They're not going home to Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. Some can't go home to Ireland or Sri Lanka or whatever. We have students with different needs. When we start to say, let's all go online and let's do our classes online, we have to recognize some students don't have computers. Some students don't have internet access. We had to consider community possibilities here. We had to consider staff at various levels, who's essential, who's not. We had public safety issues. We had all these different things to consider. And as our president, Fiorentino, said, there are so many moving parts. So we can't assume that how the parents of incoming freshmen feel is going to be the same as how graduate students who are doing online courses feel. It's very, very different. How can we keep things functioning as well as possible? And also, what are the essential things to function? What has to function? Try to picture, Ellen, probably the most upset people of this are graduating seniors. And they're not just thinking about their job prospects and the fact that they were going to be out of here soon. They are desperately upset about graduation, the graduation process.
Something we saw with communications is we call our graduation ceremonies commencement. And students I've never heard a student use that term ever. So there was some confusion as to students saying, we're not going to graduate on time. And we had to change our messaging to make it very clear that, no, you still will receive your diploma on time and you'll still be graduating. Technically, it's the ceremony that is being pushed back. But I can tell you, as far as the social media side of things, when we pushed out the message that we were moving to alternative modes of instruction for the spring semester, which is a huge message to push out, around 50,000 or so people saw that message on Facebook. Whereas when we pushed out the message about commencement ceremonies, that reached 265,000 people. So just to show you that how many more people were interested in seeing when that was going to happen and how that was going to happen on our campus, and sharing that with their friends through social, it made it have a bigger impact as far as views and on our social channels.
Different universities have taken different positions on that. Some of them are trying to be, everybody's playing the long game and trying to figure it out logistically. But in terms of the decision-making process, if we think about it, Ellen, we have to have sufficient data to make decisions. And right now, with no clear indication of where the curve will be at that time, I think what's going on at a lot of institutions is to plan for the worst, but not decide until it's necessary to decide. Clearly, if you're deciding on whether to open up dorms and things like that, then you've got to, months in advance, you've got to make sure that things are in place and make the decision at that time. But people are trying not to rush the decisions to make them before they can be made. If the infection rate is 0.001%, that's one thing. If the infection rate is 4%, that's something totally different. So although we would like to make the decisions as early as possible, at the other end of it, paradoxically, we would like to make the decisions as late as possible to have all of the information we could have there to make the decision.
So initially it was a lot of getting out messaging, communicating things very clearly with our students and our audiences, whereas now it's getting back to, like you mentioned, having them engaged with our page, especially for the incoming class that, their deposits are due May 1st, and we want to see every single student that was admitted on our campus. So getting those students, those incoming students, to stay excited about Westchester University, to watch our virtual tour if they're not able to come, because they're not able to come to campus any longer. I mean, I know I worked with our admissions team who transferred their accepted student day, which is typically on campus, onto a virtual model in, I think, a matter of a week. The admissions team did a wonderful job doing that. So my position has certainly shifted now back a little bit to some normalcy of being very engaging and having more fun marketing aspects to what we're posting every day.
And give me just one idea of some kind of fun thing, because I'm thinking if you have all these students coming in and they're new, nobody knows anybody, they've no opportunity to meet each other. What kind of fun things are you getting them up to so that they feel they're part of this community?
Sure. So it's something as simple as sharing their online space. So a lot of our parents are very active too, and they have created signs, if you will, for their students to say different campuses throughout the world. So if they're located in New York, they'll have Lawrence campus, New York. They've printed out these signs and hung them above their online space. So it's really cute to see the students working in their online space at home. And that's been something that students and parents have been really avid to share with us. But just things like online bingo that even our alumni can participate in. And we're doing online Q&As every single week with admissions. And it's been really eye-opening actually to see these questions coming in that incoming students have about Westchester, because it's helped us actually improve our website, because we're looking at these questions, and if there's a trend where 40 students have asked the same question, then maybe it's something on our website that we need to improve and enhance so that you have that information more clearly there.
Zoom is fantastic, but you can't get some nuance that you would normally get, and connections break off and things like that. You have to, if students are, we're trying to make it as normal as possible, trying to use that word. But if students are supposed to be in class at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning, that's when we have our Zoom meeting. It's at 9:30, and everybody assembles at that time, and we have it. And we've even been counseled to say, hey, don't sort of linger after the time period is over for class, because these students have other places to get to, either physically or on a Zoom. They got to go somewhere else, so we have to treat that with respect as well. It's a learning curve for professors, it's a learning curve for students. But Alan, if this is a new reality, if this is the way we're going to be doing this for a good while, you and me and students ought to be paying attention to how we set up a Zoom and who speaks when, and et cetera, because this is going to be part of their lives.
For me, there's so many different audiences that we're trying to connect with right now. We have our seniors who would be graduating on around May 8th. We have our incoming students that, like I said, deposit deadline is May 1st, decision day, we call it. And then we have, just our current students and our alumni that we're trying to engage. So I think it's just wearing many different hats to make sure that all these audiences are covered.
We've got the short term to worry about and the long term to worry about. The short term is obviously literally getting through the semester, which just has a few weeks to go. So it's exams. There are some programs that can help you maintain the quality of examinations. Some people are turning to papers as opposed to exams. But we're sort of like, on the short term, there is the let's get through the semester part of this, particularly for our seniors. The longer term, we have a lot of support for our teaching process in terms of tutorials, et cetera, on how to best use these new online systems. And I think people are slowly coming around to the fact that there will be when things get back to balance, there's going to be some permanent changes. And whether that's going to involve, how long it's going to involve Zoom classes, et cetera, we don't know. It's going to go into we know it's going to go into the summer, not necessarily into the fall. But if it does, wrapping our head around the fact that this is the new reality, there's some form of new reality that we all have to get used to. Some begrudgingly, some enthusiastically, but changes are absolutely going to have to come, and we're going to have to use our best ingenuity and creativity. That's what we should be doing in the academy, as ways of making the best we can with the situation.
I really enjoyed that interview. It's always great to catch up with PR professionals. For me, there were 5 key takeaways from that interview.
Establish good communications channels. The university was smart enough to survey their students before the spring break. 10,000 of the 14,000 students responded. That indicates a well-established and obviously interactive communication channel. Decisive leadership. Senior council at the university reacted quickly to the information they were given and took the decision to close the campus in the best interests of students and staff. Data-driven decisions. At all times, the university acted on data. Melissa gathered the questions in the first 24 hours and relayed them to senior management, which helped identify issues and fears. Data from interaction with students at the Q&A sessions created changes to the content and presentation of the university's website. Listening skills. The communications team listened to what was being said on social media and changed the language they used around the graduation issue to create better understanding. And finally, forward planning and scenario modelling. The university is already putting into place training for their professors, and they're modelling different student scenarios for the start of the next semester in August. No decisions have been made yet, but all of the options have been evaluated.
Essential online training solutions for communications professionals, the PR Training Academy.